In times immemorial, even before the existence of empires and kings preceding history itself, God spoke, "Let there be light," and from the absolute void, the universe emerged, and light dispelled the darkness. The oceans divided, the dry land arose from the aquatic depths, the skies filled with life, the stars were positioned in their proper places, and, at the apex of creation, God molded mankind. Man enjoyed freedom, living in harmony with the divine, free from fear, suffering, or death itself, until all was lost. Falsehood subverted the established order, rebellion annihilated the original perfection, and, in a fleeting instant, Eden closed. Humanity decayed. Sin entered the world, and, from that fateful day, the destiny of the human race was forever transformed. Since then, man has waged an incessant battle against his own propensity for evil. The days grew dark, the generations became corrupt. Violence spread across the earth until divine justice manifested itself, and through an overwhelming flood, the ancient world was obliterated. However, even amidst judgment, God always preserved a remnant, keeping his plan alive and summoning those who placed their faith in him. Humanity, in its arrogance, attempted to usurp the place of God, seeking its own glory. But the Creator thwarted their ambitions and scattered them across the face of the earth. Then God called a man, Abraham, "Leave your land and behold the heavens. So shall your offspring be." Through him, a people would be born, a nation destined to bring redemption to the world. But the path to be traveled would be arduous, full of trials, promises, betrayals, and slavery. However, in all circumstances, God would fulfill his purpose, for even in betrayal, the divine presence manifests itself. Even in pain, God has a plan. Even in exile, God honors his promise. This is the narrative of the beginning, the story of creation and the fall, the saga of humanity and the promise. From the first breath of life to the emergence of a nation, this is the story of Genesis. Welcome to the echoes of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was a formless void, and darkness hovered over the surface of the abyss, but the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Then God commanded, "Let there be light," and light burst forth, dispelling the darkness. God separated the light from the darkness, calling the light day and the darkness night, and God saw that it was good. However, the work was not complete. God stretched out the heavens, raised the mountains, and hollowed out the oceans. Through his word, he caused the rivers to flow and filled the earth with life. Every plant, every tree, every creature in the heavens, on earth and in the seas was created by his hand, and God saw that everything was good thing. But something was still missing, the pinnacle of his creation, something distinct, something unique. God descended to earth, bent over the dust, and with his own hands molded man. However, this creature did not yet possess life. It was only clay molded by the Creator, until God breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, and man opened his eyes for the first time. Adam breathed. God declared, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." God placed man in a perfect place, a garden of delight, a paradise free from death, disease, or pain. And in the midst of this Eden, God walked alongside his creation. However, man was not complete, for although all creatures had company, Adam was alone. A deep slumber was induced by God in man, and while he rested, he removed one of his ribs, using it to mold woman. Upon awakening, Adam beheld her and recognized her uniqueness, understanding that she was his complement, his companion. Adam, filled with admiration and joy, exclaimed, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man." Man and woman enjoyed a harmonious existence, free from shame and fear. Peace reigned, life flourished, and goodness prevailed. However, the antagonist was already lurking, and in the depths of the garden, the serpent awaited the opportune moment to attack. In the garden, two singular trees stood out, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God instructed Adam, saying, "You may freely eat from every tree in the garden, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat from it you shall surely die." However, the serpent, the enemy of God, the deceiver of mankind, approached the woman and questioned, "Did God really forbid you to eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve, hesitant, replied, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, God has commanded us, 'You shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die.'" The serpent replied, "You will certainly not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The serpent's words echoed in Eve's mind. She beheld the fruit, which appeared beautiful and appetizing, and her heart longed to be equal to God. Making the decision, she plucked the fruit from the tree and tasted it. Then she offered it to Adam, who also consumed it. In that instant, reality transformed. The eyes of the man and woman were opened, and they realized their nakedness. For the first time, they experienced shame and fear. They hid among the trees, but the voice of God echoed in the garden, "Adam, where are you?" Adam replied, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God inquired, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree from which I commanded you not to eat?" Adam justified himself. "The woman you gave me as a companion offered me fruit from the tree, and I ate." God then questioned the woman, "What is this you have done?" Eve replied, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." Sin had entered the world, and the curse was uttered: pain, sweat, and death. Eden was sealed forever. However, before the expulsion of man, God granted a promise. From the offspring of the woman would arise the one who would crush the serpent's head. Sin would not represent the end, and death would not utter the last word, for from that day on, the plan of redemption had its beginning. Man was expelled from Eden, and the land ceased to be a paradise. Thorns sprouted in the fields, sweat poured with every effort, and death became a reality. Despite the fall, God did not abandon humanity. Adam and Eve had children, and from their lineage would emanate the promise of redemption. However, before that, sin would reveal its true face. Eve conceived and gave birth to her firstborn, exclaiming, "I have obtained a man from the Lord." His name was Cain, the firstborn of humanity. Years later, his brother Abel was born. Cain dedicated himself to cultivating the land, while Abel became a shepherd of sheep, each following his vocation. Each of them labored with their own internal motivations, but only one maintained a close relationship with the divine. The time came to present offerings to the Lord. Cain offered the fruits of the land, the result of his sweat and dedication. In contrast, Abel selected the firstborn of his flock, the strongest and most unblemished lambs, and offered them to God. The Lord looked with favor on Abel's offering, but did not demonstrate the same satisfaction with Cain's. Cain's face twisted in fury, his features hardened, and anger took over his being. God then questioned him, "Why are you angry, Cain? Why is your face downcast? If you act correctly, will you not be accepted? But if you do not, sin is crouching at the door, like a hungry beast, eager to dominate you, but you must subdue it." The divine words echoed in Cain's mind, but instead of repentance, he allowed himself to be consumed by rancor. His brother ceased to be seen as a family member, transforming into a shadow to be eliminated. Thus one day Cain called Abel to the field. Abel, unaware of his brother's dark intentions, suspected nothing, and when they were alone, hatred erupted. Cain attacked Abel, striking and wounding him. For the first time in history, human blood stained the ground. "Where is Abel, your brother?" the Lord inquired. "Am I my brother's keeper?" Cain retorted. "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed. You will be a wanderer, wandering incessantly. It is a punishment too great. Anyone who finds me will kill me. I will put a mark on you so that no one touches you. But you will be banished and live in the land of Nod." Cain departed, wandering far from the divine presence, lost, homeless, and without rest. Sin had not only separated him from his brother, but also from his creator. Cain erected a city, and his descendants prospered. However, with each generation, wickedness intensified, selfishness multiplied, and violence spread across the earth. Each individual lived for himself, until one day God beheld humanity and uttered, "My spirit will not contend with man forever. I will eliminate from the face of the earth every living thing, for their wickedness is extreme." Creation had rebelled against its creator. The world lay immersed in corruption. Every human thought was perverse. Every action was evil. God, with a heavy heart, decided to put an end to the age of violence. However, amidst the darkness, amidst so much corruption, one man found grace in the eyes of the Lord. His name was Noah. Noah was different. While the world drowned in sin, he maintained an intimate relationship with God. And God spoke to him, "Noah, I have decided to exterminate all flesh, for the earth is full of violence. Build an ark of wood with 3 stories and seal its planks with bitumen, for inside it I will keep those who will survive." Lord, an ark. Why? Because I will bring a flood upon the earth. It will rain for 40 days and 40 nights. The waters will cover the mountains, and everything that breathes will perish. But you will enter the ark, you and your family, and of each species of animal you will take a pair, so that they may live with you. For after the judgment, I will give rise to a new humanity. Noah believed in God, and for over 100 years, built the ark, wood after wood, plank after plank, under the scorching sun and under the scorn of men. The population mocked him. "Noah, it has never rained. There is no sea." Right here, why on earth do you need an ark? A senile old man raving about a God we've never seen, about a judgment that will never happen. But Noah didn't stop building, because even if people didn't believe in God, Noah did. When the ark was ready, the animals began to arrive in pairs, couples of each creature, from the largest wild animals to the smallest insects. And then God gave the final order, "Noah, enter the ark with your family, because in 7 days I will send rain." Noah and his family entered. The doors of the ark closed, and the world outside had no idea that its fate was sealed. And then the sky darkened, the wind howled, the first thunders shook the earth, and the rain began to fall. At first, just a few drops, then a storm, then a flood. The rivers overflowed, the seas covered the coasts, the mountains were swallowed by the waters. People ran to the highest places, knocking on the doors of the ark. "Noah, open up for us, let us in, save us." But it was too late. God had closed the door, and for 40 days and 40 nights the rain did not stop. The earth was submerged, and every living thing perished, except those who were inside the ark. And then, after 150 days, the waters began to recede. The ark rested on Mount Ararat, and Noah waited. He sent out a raven, but the raven did not return. Then he sent out a dove, and the dove returned with an olive leaf. The earth was being reborn. And finally, God spoke to him again. "Come out of the ark, you, your family, and all living beings. Multiply and fill the earth. For I will make a covenant with you and with all creation." Noah built an altar and offered sacrifices to God. And then, in the sky, a sign appeared, a bow of bright light over the clouds, a promise that God would never again destroy the earth with water. Whenever you see the bow in the clouds, remember my covenant. Because even if man continues to be sinful, I, the Lord, will always keep my promise. Thus began the new humanity, a new opportunity, a new earth. But soon men would forget God once again, and arrogance would lead them to challenge the Creator. The earth had been restored. Noah's sons populated the world. Nations and peoples spread across the corners of the earth. But in their hearts, men had not changed. Evil continued to grow. Pride continued to dominate. On the plain of Shinar, a people decided to do something never before seen. A monument to their own greatness, a challenge to God himself. They said to each other, "Let's build a city and a tower that reaches to the sky. Let's make a name for ourselves so that we are not scattered all over the face of the earth." Brick upon brick, the tower rose higher than any other building, a symbol of human pride. But God saw what they were doing and said, "Behold, they are one people, and they all speak the same language. Now nothing they propose to do will be impossible for them. Let's go down and confuse their language, so that they do not understand each other." And at that moment, the language of men was confused. The workers could no longer understand each other. Chaos took over the city, shouts in unknown languages, confusion, despair. The tower was abandoned, the men scattered all over the earth, and the city was called Babel, because there God confused their language. And once again, human pride was subdued. Centuries unfolded, civilizations flourished, and amidst a region dominated by paganism, the divine elected a man. Not a monarch, nor a warrior, nor a priest, but an individual imbued with faith. "Abraham, leave your homeland, your family ties, the house of your progenitor, and go to the land that I will reveal to you." "Where to, Lord?" Abraham questioned. "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. Through you, all the families of the earth will receive blessings." Abraham did not fully understand, he did not know his destiny, but he placed his belief in God, renouncing his home, his land, everything that was familiar to him, following the guidance of the Creator. For his story would mark the beginning of an eternal promise. Abraham departed from his homeland, abandoned his home, his past, and walked the path towards the unknown, carrying with him a divine promise. God had declared, "I will make of you a great nation. Your descendants will be as numerous as the dust of the earth, the stars of the sky, and the sand of the sea. And through you, all the families of the earth will be blessed." Abraham believed, he held hope, but the years passed and the promise seemed increasingly distant. For Sarah, his wife, was barren, unable to bear children. With each passing day, doubt intensified. Then one day Sarah proposed, "Abraham, God has prevented me from conceiving. Lie with my maidservant Hagar. Perhaps through her we can have a child." Abraham agreed to Sarah's suggestion, and Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. However, this was not the son of the promise, for God had a distinct plan. "Sarah will give birth to a son, and you shall call him Isaac, for with him I will confirm my covenant." Abraham was 100 years old, Sarah was 90. The conception of a child seemed improbable, but for God, nothing is impossible. And one day, Sarah became pregnant. With the birth of the boy, Abraham rejoiced, for God had fulfilled his word. However, the greatest trial was yet to come. Years later, Isaac grew up, becoming the son of the promise, Abraham's heir. Suddenly, God manifested again. "Abraham." "Here I am, Lord," Abraham replied. "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, and take him to the land of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain that I will show you." Abraham's heart contracted. How could God require something so cruel? This was the son he had waited for all his life, the son of the promise, the miracle. However, Abraham did not falter, for although he did not understand, he trusted in God. The next day he rose at dawn, took his son, the wood, the knife, and began to ascend the mountain. Isaac walked beside him, unaware of what was about to happen, but intrigued by the situation. "Father, here are the wood and the fire, but where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Isaac inquired. Abraham looked at his son and, with unwavering faith, replied, "God will provide the lamb for the sacrifice, my son." Upon reaching the summit of the mountain, Abraham built the altar, arranged the wood in order, bound his son, and placed him on the altar. Isaac did not resist, did not scream, surrendering himself in obedience. Abraham raised the knife, ready to obey, ready to renounce everything. For in his heart he believed that if God required it, God could also restore his son from the dead. And when the blade of the knife, when the immolation was about to occur, a powerful voice echoed from the heavens. "Abraham, Abraham," he replied, "Here I am." The voice continued, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your only son." Abraham laid down the cleaver, looked around, and saw a ram caught by its horns in the thicket. God had provided the sacrifice. Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. Isaac was freed, the offering was made, and God reiterated his promise to Abraham. "Because you have done this, and have not withheld your only son from me, I will bless you abundantly, and multiply your descendants as the stars of the sky and as the sand that is on the seashore. Through your lineage, all the nations of the earth will be blessed." Abraham descended from the mountain, and the divine promise remained alive, for from his lineage would descend Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and, in future times, the Savior of the world. On that day on the mountain, God not only spared Isaac, he revealed the future. For one day, on that same mountain, a father would give his son, a son would be sacrificed, and his blood would bring redemption for humanity. God's promise was transmitted through Isaac, who inherited the covenant of his father Abraham. With his wife Rebekah, he had 2 sons, 2 brothers, 2 nations, 2 opposing destinies from the womb. While Rebekah was pregnant, she felt an agitation within her. Concerned, she sought the Lord, who answered her, "2 nations are in your womb, 2 distinct peoples will come from your body. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Isaac was approximately 60 years old when the day of the birth of his sons arrived. The first baby was born red and covered with hair. They called him Esau. When his brother was born, he was holding Esau's heel, and that is why they called him Jacob. From the first moment, the rivalry between them began. The years passed, and the boys grew. Esau became a skilled and robust hunter, a man of the field. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man, a man who lived in tents, who observed and waited. Although Esau was the firstborn, Jacob desired the blessing. One day, Esau returned from the field exhausted and hungry. Jacob was preparing a red stew, the aroma of which permeated the tent. Esau could not resist and said, "Give me some of that stew, I am starving." Jacob astutely replied, "Sell me your birthright." Esau retorted, "What good is the birthright to me if I am on the verge of death?" Jacob insisted, "Swear to me." Esau swore, and for a simple plate of food, he sold his birthright, despising God's blessing. Thus, Jacob took it. However, the real contention had not yet ended. The years passed, and Isaac aged to 137 years. His vision weakened, and he began to suffer from blindness. One day, he called his son Esau and said, "My son, I am old, and I do not know the day of my death. Take your bow and arrows, go to the field, and hunt some game for me. Prepare me a tasty stew so that I can bless you before I die." Rebekah overheard the conversation. She remembered the prophecy, "The older will serve the younger." In her heart, she decided to help Jacob. Rebekah said to Jacob, "Son, your father is about to bless Esau. Do what I tell you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 goats. I will prepare a stew for your father, and you will receive the blessing in his place." Jacob replied, "But mother, Esau is hairy, and I am not. If my father touches me, he will realize that I am trying to deceive him, and instead of a blessing, I will receive a curse. Let the curse fall on me. Just do what I tell you." Jacob took the skins of the goats, 29:44, placing them on his arms and neck. Rebekah prepared the stew, and Jacob entered his father's tent. "My father," he said. "Who are you, my son?" Isaac asked. "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done what you asked me. Get up and eat so that you can bless me." "How did you find it so quickly?" Isaac inquired. "The Lord, your God, helped me," Jacob replied. Isaac, suspicious, felt Jacob's arms and felt the roughness of Esau's hair. Smelling his clothes, he recognized the aroma of the field. Then he granted him the blessing. "May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the richness of the earth. May peoples serve you and nations bow down before you." 30:35. "Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow to you. Blessed be those who bless you, and cursed be those who curse you." Jacob left the tent, and soon after, Esau arrived with his game. Upon understanding what had happened, he trembled violently and exclaimed, "Father, do you not have another blessing for me?" Isaac replied, "Your brother came with deceit and took your blessing. Jacob supplanted me twice. He took away my birthright and now the blessing." Esau, consumed by anger, murmured, "When my father dies, I will kill my brother." 31:20. Rebekah, hearing Esau's words, feared for Jacob's life and sent him away. He fled to the land of Aram, to the house of his uncle Laban. Jacob had conquered the blessing, but now he was a fugitive, a homeless man, a man on the run. However, amidst his loneliness, God would find him. Jacob walked until the sun began to set. Without shelter, without company, he took a stone for a pillow and lay down on the ground. As he slept, he had a dream. Jacob saw a tall, infinite ladder with its base on the earth and 32:06 its top touching the heavens. Angels were ascending and descending on it, divine messengers connecting heaven with earth. At the top of the ladder was God himself. "Jacob," said God, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac. The land where you now sleep, I will give it to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. They will spread to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go. I will not leave you until I have fulfilled all that," 32:54, "I have promised you." Jacob woke up startled. He looked around. The wind was blowing gently among the stones. The sky was still dark, but in his heart, everything had changed. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," he exclaimed. Trembling, Jacob took the stone that had served as a pillow, raised it, poured oil on it, and called that place Bethel, which means house of God. There he made a vow. "If God is with me, if he keeps me on this way, if he gives me bread to eat and clothes to wear, and makes me return in peace to my father's house," 33:42, "then the Lord will be my God, and of everything that he gives me, I will surely give him a tenth." Jacob rose early in the morning. The rising sun illuminated his face. He knew that he still had a long way to go. He knew that he would still face many trials, but now he no longer walked alone, because God had promised to be with him. From that day on, Jacob was never the same, but the true metamorphosis was yet to come. Jacob continued his journey, crossing the arid desert, crossing mighty rivers and deep valleys, until he reached the land of Haran, the home of his uncle Laban. 34:28. However, despite believing that he would find refuge there, what awaited him was an even greater trial, for in the same way that he had deceived, he would now be deceived. Jacob arrived at a well in the fields of Haran, where he saw some shepherds waiting to water their flocks. He approached them and inquired, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" "Yes, we know him. Look, there comes his daughter Rachel with her sheep." Jacob looked into the distance, and upon beholding Rachel, his heart trembled. She was beautiful, unique, and at that moment Jacob knew that he wanted to marry her. 35:12. He went to Laban's house, related his story, and after a month Laban made him a proposal. "Jacob, it is not right for you to work for me for free. Tell me, what will your salary be? I will work for you 7 years for your daughter Rachel. It is better that I receive her from you than from another man. Stay with me." And so Jacob labored for 7 years, each day, each night, each hour, thinking of Rachel. The time seemed short, for he loved her, for he longed for the day when she would become his wife. Finally, the longed-for day arrived. The banquet was prepared, the lamps lit, the music echoed. 36:02 in Laban's house. Jacob awaited his wife, but in the darkness of the night, without him realizing it, Laban exchanged Rachel for her older sister, Leah. Upon waking the next morning, Jacob's heart was filled with horror, and he decided to confront Laban. "Laban, what have you done? I worked for Rachel. Why did you deceive me? It is not customary in our land to marry the younger one first. Fulfill the week with Leah, and I will also give you Rachel, but you will have to work another 7 years." Jacob had no choice. He married Rachel and served another 7 years, 14 years of 36:49 deception, 14 years of waiting, 14 years of struggle. However, God had not yet finished with him. The years passed, Jacob prospered, God blessed him with riches and cattle, but over time the tension with Laban grew. Laban's sons looked at him with envy, and Jacob knew it was time to leave. God spoke to him, "Jacob, return to the land of your fathers, to the house of your family. I will be with you." However, returning to his land meant facing Esau, the brother he had deceived, the man who had sworn to kill him. Jacob was afraid, but his greatest 37:35 struggle would not be against Esau, but against God himself. Jacob crossed the Jabbok River with his family and his possessions, but that night he remained alone. Suddenly, a man appeared in the darkness, and without uttering a word, threw himself upon him. Jacob fought with all his strength, with all his being. The battle was fierce, neither yielded, neither fell. Hours passed until, at dawn, the stranger touched Jacob's hip, and his hip socket was dislocated. At that moment, Jacob understood. This was not an ordinary man. It was God himself who said to him, "Let me go, for the day is breaking. I will not," 38:25, "let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" "Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." Jacob, as his firmness ceased, fell to his knees, breathing heavily. Raising his eyes, the unusual being had vanished. The sun was rising, and with each ray of light, Jacob felt different. But that night was not just a victory. He had undergone a metamorphosis. He was no longer Jacob, the usurper, but Israel, the Prince of God. Despite the injury to his hip, his spirit found healing. The next day, Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming toward him with 400 men. Jacob bowed down 7 times, anticipating his brother's fury. However, Esau ran to meet him, and instead of attacking him, embraced him. With a choked voice, Esau said, "My brother." Jacob burst into tears. The past was healed, the blessing had been restored, for God had transformed his heart, and the saga of Israel was just beginning. Jacob, now called Israel, had 12 sons who became the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel. One of them, however, was unique, a son born in his old age, a young man endowed with dreams that would shape the course of history. His name was Joseph. From childhood, Joseph stood out among his brothers. His father loved him more than the others, and to demonstrate this affection had a coat of many colors made for him, a symbol of distinction. However, this love aroused the hatred of his brothers, generating jealousy and rivalry. When Joseph began to have prophetic dreams, his fate was sealed. One day, Joseph shared with enthusiasm, "Brothers, I had a dream. We were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf rose up, and yours bowed down to it." One of Joseph's brothers replied with disdain, "Will you actually reign over us?" Will you govern us?" Shortly thereafter, Joseph had another dream even more impactful. "I saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to me." Then his father rebuked him. "Will your mother, your brothers, and I actually bow down to you?" His brothers hated him even more, and one day decided to get rid of him. One day Joseph was sent by his father to the field. His brothers saw him from afar and plotted, "Here comes the dreamer, let's kill him and say that a wild animal devoured him." But Reuben, the eldest, tried to save him. "Let's not shed blood. Let's throw him into this cistern, but let's not harm him." So when Joseph arrived, they attacked him, tore off his coat, and threw him into a waterless pit. There he remained, alone and terrified. But his torment was just beginning. While they were eating, they saw a caravan of merchants heading to Egypt. Judah, one of the 12 brothers, with greed in his eyes, proposed, "What do we gain by killing our brother? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. After all, he is our own flesh and blood." And for 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold as a slave, heading to an unknown land, to a destiny he could not imagine. But what his brothers did not know was that Joseph was not alone, for God was with him. Joseph was taken to Egypt, a betrayed young man, a slave in a foreign land. But although they had sold him and stripped him of his coat, they could not take away what was most important, the plan that God had for him. And in the house of his master, Joseph prospered. Joseph was bought by Potiphar, captain of the Pharaoh's guard, a powerful man. And after some time, Potiphar realized that Joseph was not an ordinary slave. God blessed him in everything he did. Then Potiphar said, amazed, "Everything you put your hands to prospers, Joseph. From today on, you will be the administrator of my house. Everything I own will be your responsibility." Joseph rose from slave to a position of authority in the residence of an Egyptian officer. He demonstrated righteousness, loyalty, and integrity, but the greatest challenge was yet to come. Joseph was a handsome young man, and Potiphar's wife watched him with desire. Day after day, she harassed him, until one day, when they were alone in the house, she approached him and invited him, "Lie with me." Joseph firmly replied, "No. My master has entrusted everything to me, has withheld nothing from me except you. How could I commit such a wicked act and sin against God?" Joseph tried to get away, but she grabbed him by his coat. He fled, leaving the coat in her hands, for he preferred to lose his clothes than to lose his integrity. The woman, consumed by fury, falsely accused him, "My husband, that Hebrew, tried to rape me. Here is the proof, his coat." Potiphar believed the lie, and although he knew that Joseph was a righteous man, he could not allow his honor to be tarnished. So he threw him into prison. The prison bars closed on Joseph. Once again, he had been betrayed, stripped, but even in prison, Joseph continued to trust in God. The warden observed him and said, "Everything you do prospers. From today on, you will be in charge of the prisoners." Even in prison, Joseph was exalted, and there God granted him a new gift, the ability to interpret dreams. One day, 2 of Pharaoh's officials were thrown into prison, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. Each had a mysterious dream, and Joseph listened to them. The cupbearer, worried, said, "In my dream I saw a vine with 3 branches. Clusters of grapes sprouted, and I squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup." Joseph replied with conviction, "The 3 branches represent 3 days. In 3 days, you will be restored to your position. When that happens, remember me." The baker, seeing that the interpretation had been favorable, said, "In my dream, I carried 3 baskets on my head, and the birds ate from the top basket." This time, Joseph replied with regret, "The 3 baskets represent 3 days. In 3 days, you will be hanged." 3 days later, the interpretations were fulfilled. The cupbearer was restored, the baker was executed. However, the cupbearer forgot about Joseph, and Joseph remained in prison for 2 more years, until one day Pharaoh had a dream that no one could interpret. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph and said to Pharaoh with urgency, "O Pharaoh, in the prison there is a man who interprets dreams accurately. His name is Joseph." Joseph was taken out of prison, shaved, put on new clothes, and taken to the presence of Pharaoh. The fate of Egypt now depended on him. "I had a dream, but no one can interpret it. They say you can do it." "Not I, my lord. God will give the answer. I saw 7 fat cows, and after them 7 lean cows that devoured them. Then I saw 7 full ears of grain, and after them 7 withered ears that consumed them." What does it mean? God has revealed to Pharaoh what is to come: 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. My advice is to seek a wise man who will store provisions during the good years, so that Egypt may survive the crisis. Can we find another man like this, in whom is the Spirit of God? From today on, by divine appointment, you will be the governor of Egypt. Only on the throne will I be superior to you. "Take this ring," said Pharaoh, handing him the symbol of authority. "Take this chariot. From now on, everyone will bow down before you." Thus, Joseph rose from slave to the position of the second most powerful man in Egypt. The years of abundance arrived, and Egypt prospered under Joseph's management. He stored grain in the cities, built immense granaries, and prepared the nation for the trials that were to come. When the 7 years of famine manifested, Egypt possessed an abundance of bread, while Canaan faced the misery of drought. Joseph's brothers, unaware of the identity of their former enslaved brother, departed for Egypt in search of sustenance. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt except for Benjamin, the youngest. The 10 brothers appeared before the governor, bowing in reverence, without suspecting that the man before whom they prostrated themselves was, in fact, their own brother Joseph. He recognized them instantly, but they did not recognize him. In his heart, Joseph relived the memories of his prophetic dreams. The past had returned, and now he held the power. Revenge was within his reach, the opportunity to make them pay for their actions. However, God's plan in his heart was different. Joseph observed them with a cold expression and interrogated them harshly. "Are you spies? Have you come to observe the weaknesses of our land?" "No, my lord," they replied. "We are sons of the same father. We are 12 brothers. The youngest stayed with our father, and one is no more." Joseph felt a lump in his throat, but kept his identity secret. In his heart, he longed to know if they had changed. So he imposed a trial on them. "One of you will remain imprisoned here. The rest will return, but you will not see my face again unless you bring your youngest brother." The brothers returned to Canaan and reported everything to their father. Jacob resisted, lamenting, "Joseph is no more, Simeon is imprisoned, and now I will lose Benjamin too." But the famine intensified, becoming unbearable. Finally, Jacob yielded and allowed Benjamin to accompany them. Upon seeing Benjamin, Joseph felt a mixture of emotions. Benjamin was the only one who had not betrayed him, the only one who still preserved purity in his heart. However, one last trial was necessary. Joseph invited them to a banquet, showing great courtesy. But as they said goodbye, he gave a secret order: "Put my silver cup in the youngest one's sack." When the brothers departed, Joseph sent his guards in pursuit. They stopped them on the road and searched their sacks. Upon finding the cup in Benjamin's sack, the brothers' hearts were shattered. They were taken back to the presence of Joseph, prostrating themselves before him and begging for mercy for Benjamin. "Lord," they pleaded, "if Benjamin does not return, our father will die of sorrow. Please take me as a slave in his place, but allow the young man to return to his father." Judah's words touched Joseph's heart deeply. He perceived a transformation in his brothers. Before, they had sold a brother without remorse. Now they were willing to sacrifice themselves for the youngest. Joseph could no longer contain his emotions. He stood up and burst into tears. His brothers stared at him, perplexed, until he declared, "I am Joseph, your brother, the one you sold as a slave." The brothers were paralyzed, overcome with fear, for they knew that Joseph had the power to make them pay for their actions. But in his eyes there was no revenge, only tears and forgiveness. "Do not be afraid," said Joseph. "It was not you who sent me here, but God. He sent me ahead of you to save your lives. Go and bring my father, for there are still 5 years of famine left, and I will sustain you." They embraced tightly, and together the tears flowed, washing away the grievances. The hatred was healed, the past redeemed, and the family restructured. However, one last encounter awaited, the reunion of Joseph with his father. Upon receiving the news, Jacob's heart almost stopped. "Joseph is still alive. Take me to him before I die," he exclaimed. Jacob departed for Egypt with his entire family. When Joseph saw him, he ran to meet him. After years of suffering, after years of absence, Jacob embraced his son, and with tears in his eyes said, "Now I can die in peace, for I have seen your face, and know that you are alive." Jacob and his family settled in Egypt. There, the nation of Israel grew and multiplied. Jacob lived his last years in peace, and before passing away, blessed his sons. Joseph, in turn, lived to glimpse the future. "My brothers, God will surely visit you and take you to the land he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Swear to me that, when that happens, you will take my bones with you, for this is not our final land." Joseph died in Egypt, but his story did not end there. Centuries later, when the people of Israel were enslaved, a boy would be rescued from the waters, a boy who would grow up to liberate his people, a boy named Moses, and thus begins the story of the Exodus. If you've made it this far, our sincere thanks for joining us on this extraordinary narrative. Genesis is not merely the origin of the world, it is the genesis of our story, the account of how God created, redeemed, and sustained his people despite the fall, despite sin, despite betrayal. For through each generation from Adam to Joseph, God never renounced his promise, and that promise remains alive to this day. This project demanded effort, financial investment, and months of dedication. If this film touched you, share it, leave your like and your comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because this story does not end here. In moments, 2 videos specially selected for you will appear on the screen. If you enjoyed this film, I recommend watching the production of Exodus, the fascinating continuation of this biblical saga, which narrates from slavery in Egypt to the burning bush, the plagues, and the crossing of the Red Sea. And if you want to discover another impactful story, I invite you to watch the film of Esther, a story of courage and faith in times of danger, where a young Jewish woman becomes queen to save her people from extermination. These are 2 highly recommended productions, therefore choose one and continue unraveling with us the mysteries of the Word of God. We'll meet in the next video. May God bless you. Amen.